Today on episode 9 of the Play Guitar podcast, I slide scale patterns around into different keys. You can get a lot of mileage out of just one pattern. Also, we've got some listener feedback and another installment of Creating the Band, so stay tuned. Welcome to episode 9 of the Play Guitar podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that'll help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. On today's episode, I'm on the last step of my 6 essential steps to really understanding guitar scales. It's been fun working my way through this guide. It's turned out much better than I thought it would. Splitting it up like this has allowed me to kind of explore all the foundational things you need to move forward with guitar scales. And on this last step, we take the scales we've learned and start moving them around. We're going to slide them into different keys so that we can use them in lots of different styles of music and different songs. Although you don't need to have listened to the previous shows to get a lot out of today's episode, I recommend it. Go back at some point, go back over episode 6, episode 7, episode 8, to get all of this really helpful information. You'll be glad that you did. And check out the complimentary blog post to this program. It's at www.playguitarpodcast.com/keys, Keys. It's got some scale charts that will go along with this, and it could really help some of you get started moving these patterns into some new keys. Other than that, it's been a great month. What a month it's been. Coming to the end of this first month of the show, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. It's been a very busy month. I've had, the new podcast out and all the blog posts. It's been a lot of fun. I'm also starting some YouTube videos this week or next week, depending on how it goes. But I also want to congratulate my winter quarter students, my in-person students, and wish them good luck. We have a concert coming up this weekend, our winter concert. They've all been working really hard on their songs all quarter, and we're ready to go. I got the backing band ready to go, and I'm really excited. These are really fun. They're always really fun. I'm looking forward to this weekend. So I'll report back to you on the show next week and let you know how it went. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get on with it. Let's go into the topic about sliding guitar scale patterns into new keys. Playing scales in different keys on the guitar, it's challenging. One of the first things you learn when you've got an interest in playing lead guitar, it's scale patterns. Ask any guitar player. When it's time to start shredding, you need to know your patterns. Over my last several podcasts, I've introduced my 6 essential steps to really understanding guitar scales. If you haven't heard these, I suggest you kind of go back and listen to them when you have a chance. The foundational information you get from them, it's going to speed up your learning tenfold. Here's some of the steps. Step number 1 is understand how the fretboard is set up. Step number 2 is understand what scales are and how they're built. Step number 3, know the best scales to learn for your style of music. Step 4, break those scales into manageable patterns. And step 5, start playing those patterns over chords. And we've gone over all of those in the past several podcasts. But today we're going on to step 6. That is slide those patterns into different keys. We've come a long way, and we're in the home stretch. So let's get into it. We're going to take the scales and patterns we've learned and introduce the final step we need to use these patterns in the songs that we love. When I started playing lead guitar, I was in high school, and I was an unashamed rock guitar player. That's what I liked, and I was playing a lot of cover songs in a few garage bands that I played in. I'd learned a song, and I tried my best to memorize the lead parts. At some point, I tried to put some of my own licks on these cover songs, and I found out then that my newfound licks, they didn't fit all of the songs I was playing. I needed to learn how to fit them into songs into different keys. About that time, my high school had a jazz band. They needed a guitar player. And I wasn't really a fan of jazz music at the time, but the thought of being in school and being able to play my guitar, it was irresistible. It was very enticing to me. So I joined, and being a part of the school jazz band, it opened my eyes to several things. One of them being that my problems of playing in different keys, it was super magnified when I was playing in the jazz band. This music I was trying to learn, it changed constantly. And I really found out quickly I was in over my head. There was some key concepts that I was missing, and I didn't really have a system to deal with the music that I was trying to play there. Over time, I got better. I improved, and I really started to enjoy playing those songs and going in and out of keys. But it took a while. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the things I've learned to make playing lead guitar in different keys make a lot more sense and make it very enjoyable. I don't know if you realize this, but when playing guitar, we kind of have an advantage. And this advantage is available to us through the way that the fretboard is set up. I remember taking piano lessons growing up, and each scale that I learned on the piano, it had a certain shape on the keys. And to play in another key, I had to learn a different shape. It quickly became a lot to remember. But when I started learning this on the guitar, I realized the guitar is set up different. We can learn one scale pattern on the guitar and use that same pattern to play in not just one, but all of the keys. So you say, okay, that sounds great. How do I do that? Well, we slide the patterns. Let's talk about pattern 1 of the A minor pentatonic scale, for example. This is the one everybody knows, the box, the blues box. Lots of different names for it, but let me get my guitar. We'll play a little bit of this right here. Okay, so we're going to take this pattern, the A minor pentatonic pattern 1. And if we play this scale where it's written at the 5th fret, it works nicely over an A minor chord. So let's go ahead and listen to that. I'm going to lay down an A minor chord, and then we're going to listen to what it sounds like. Okay, that works nice. That's the A minor, pentatonic pattern 1 over top of some A minor chording stuff. Works nice, nothing fantastic. Just sounds good. If we play that scale where it's written, it works nicely. But what if you needed to play this scale over a B minor chord? What do? So say we're not in the key of A minor anymore. We're in the key of B minor. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take this pattern and we're going to move it up 2 frets to the 7th fret. And now becomes a B minor pentatonic scale, and it matches perfectly with a B minor chord. Here we go. So now if I play in A still while the chord's B, it sounds terrible. So I've got to slide it up 2 frets. Sounds great. All I did was I took that same pattern that I was playing, the 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4 pattern. Did I do enough 1-3s there? And slid it up so that I started at the 7th fret. Okay. Now the shape of the pattern, it's now over different notes. It looks the same, but it's in a different area of the guitar. And that means that the notes under the pattern have changed. They're different. The scale pattern automatically puts the right notes from the new scale we needed under our fingers. I didn't need to know the names of all the notes that I played that are in that pattern. It did the work for me. But we need to know a few things to really take advantage of this. we need to really know what the notes on the E and the A strings are, the low E and the A strings. That's very important. And we need a reference point to know where the tonic notes of the scale pattern are, the strong notes, kind of like the root notes of a chord. So once we can match the tonic notes of the scale patterns with the root notes of the new chord or the key that we're playing in, we can start sliding all these patterns we've learned into new keys all day long. So let's talk about the notes on the E and the A string. I've got a blog post about this. That's probably the best thing to do. In my blog post, How Do I Learn Guitar Notes on the Fretboards? I give you the system that you need to know what any note on the fretboard is. It's very simple, and it's one that every guitar player should know. To match our scale patterns to new keys, we need to focus on the notes from those two strings, the low E string and the A string. These are the two lowest sounding strings on the guitar, and they'll help us know what key a certain pattern is in. Not all the patterns have the tonic note on just the low E string. Some of the patterns we've learned, it's on the A string too. So you need to know both of them. In the scale patterns that I provided, I have a post called Guitar Scales, the 5 pattern system. You get to see that in each scale pattern, there's certain notes that I put a red dot on, and that means they're special. Those red dots on these notes, those are called the tonic notes of the scale. That's the tonic note's the strongest note in the scale. It's very similar to like the root note of a chord. We give the scale its name from that note, the tonic note. So in the A minor pentatonic pattern, every time you see a red dot, that's an A note. Okay, so let's play through that. So the A minor pentatonic scale has 3 red dots on it if you see the chart. The first one's the first note, and then we've got the 7th fret on the D string, and then the 5th fret again, but this time on the high E string. Those are our red dots. Those are our A's. Knowing that special red note is an A, that's the key. Now that we know that, we can start sliding these patterns around. If we slid pattern 1 up 1 fret, what would that red dot now fall on? So let's see. There's the one on the 5th fret. We're going to slide it up 1 to the 6th fret. Well, the first note that has a red dot on would now be on the 6th fret. We need to know the name of that note. So let's count up all the way from the open E string up to the 6th fret. So open E, that's an E note. The 1st fret is an F. 2nd fret is F sharp. 3rd fret is G. 4th fret is G sharp. 5th fret is A, that's where we were, and now we're at the 6th fret, that's an A sharp. That would mean pattern 1 played at the 6th fret would be an A sharp minor pentatonic scale, and it would sound great over an A sharp minor chord. If we move the scale up 2 frets now, to the 7th fret, the red note would now fall on a B. And that's what we did earlier when we played over the B minor chord. It sounded great. So now you see how that works. This pattern will work on any fret of the low E string, and that scale that's played, it takes on the name of the note that you start on that's under that red dot. But remember something. All this does is it changes the key of the scale. It doesn't change of what type of scale that we're playing. The shape that we have been playing will always stay a minor pentatonic scale. It would just be in a new key depending on what fret it starts on. What about all the other scale patterns? That was just pattern 1. What do you do with patterns 2 through 5? Well, they slide along with them. It always continues in order. Pattern 1 always goes to pattern 2, to pattern 3, to pattern 4, to pattern 5, and then back again to pattern 1. And the patterns always look the same. They always follow the same order. If you slide up pattern 1 2 frets, then you also have to slide up pattern 2 2 frets. You'll see that the red dots in all the patterns become the new tonic note. And you can take a look at some of the charts in my blog post there and see the difference between the A minor pentatonic and the B minor pentatonic. They look exactly the same. Everything is just slid up 2 frets. What about some other important notes in the patterns? Other than the tonic, there are some other important notes that we need to know in the scale patterns. Although they're not as strong as the tonic note, the 3rd and the 5th are very important notes to know if you're improvising. The 3rd and the 5th notes of the scale are the 2 other chord tones in a triad. When you play them in a scale, they sound very strong because they perfectly match the notes that are being played in the chord that you're playing along with. Another great feature of these scale patterns is that if you know where the third and the fifth notes are in one key, when you slide the patterns up into that new key and play that same place in the pattern, you'll get the third and the fifth, but of the new scale this time. Those are the strong notes, and they're found in the same places of the pattern. It doesn't matter what key you're in. So let's take a look at A major, not pentatonic this time. This is the full A major scale. I'm going to play A major pattern 1 over top of an A major chord, and I'm going to accentuate the first, the third, and the fifth notes of the scale. Those are the ones that we talked about that are found in the chords. Okay, so we're going to play a little A major here. Here's an A major full scale. Okay, and you can hear over that A chord, here's the first, the third note. Hear how it sounds nice? Very strong over that chord. This is the one note, here's the 3. Back to 1. So now, if I played that pattern at the exact same notes, but now up from the 7th fret, that third note still is in the same place of my pattern. The third note of the pattern. So all of those strong notes, the chord notes, are in the same place of the pattern, regardless of what key you're in. So as you play these patterns a lot, you'll get used to where those strong notes are. And it's great that this relationship stays the same as you slide them into new keys. So what about songs that change key? Putting this into practice is fun when you're just playing songs, that have one key. But what about songs that change key mid-song? In popular music, usually a song stays in one key. But when it does change key, it just usually does it once or twice just for dramatic effect. Think about like My Girl's got a big key change at the end. Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. Whoa! It's there to give special interest, usually in the later part of the song. But in jazz music, chord changes seamlessly go through multiple keys in one song. How do we approach this? When you're playing one song and it's going from key to key to key. Well, once you're familiar with the tonic notes in all of your patterns, you have that, but you need to do some preparing when approaching this kind of a song. You have to look ahead. You have to take a look, kind of analyze it, see where the new keys are located in the chord pattern. It's good to write that down, make a little, jot, we're in the key of C, now we're going to the key of F or whatever key it is. But looking ahead to the new keys, and knowing what scale patterns you need for those new keys, that's the name of the game. Find out where the new tonic note of the new key is and plan ahead. You need to find what pattern of that new key that you're going to is closest to the pattern that you're currently playing in. And then when it's time to switch, try to play your melody line in the direction of where that new tonic note is going to be. That's easier said than done, although it wasn't really easy to say. But timing and rhythm is super important when you're doing this. Hitting that new key at the right time, that's what will make the key change in your melody sound really good. It'll sound effortless. And once you make it to the new tonic note, then you've just changed on into the new scale pattern and you're good to go. All right, so in conclusion, the more I understand how the guitar fretboard works, the more excited I get. The way scale patterns work over the fretboard, it saves you so much time. If you had to learn all of the notes across the fretboard without having these patterns, it would take forever to master. So take some time moving your scale patterns into different keys and play them over different background tracks. It won't take long to get up and running and creating your own unique melodies in many different songs that are in many different keys. So I got a question for you. How have you found playing scale patterns in different keys? Have you found it difficult? If so, let me know what your experience is. I'd love to hear about it. Just leave it in the show notes. And that's it for the main section today. We're going to go ahead and move on to some listener feedback. Since the podcast started at the beginning of February, that was a little less than a month ago at this point, there have been a lot of surprises along the way. I've been wanting to start this show, honestly, for years. For in fact, about 4 years. 4 years ago, I recorded 2 episodes, and they were pretty rough, but I loved recording them. I still have them. I might put them up sometimes, but only for a laugh. They were pretty rough, but right after I recorded those 2, my house sold, and I moved across the country. I relocated a considerable distance away from where I was, and getting into a new area and starting up my teaching studio in a new area and just general family stuff. I just didn't feel I was in the right place to give the show the time it needed. But ever since then, podcasting has been part of my daily life. I just couldn't let it go. I spent my free time learning about it, understanding all about podcasting. And to make a long story short, I felt that when I was finally able to commit to the show, I thought I knew what was going to happen. I kind of knew enough about it to know what to expect. I've heard how some shows start and it takes them a long time to get going. And I've also heard about how some shows, they get started and they just get listeners like crazy and everything just opens up quick. But I had prepared myself that this was probably going to take a while before the things took off for this show. But what did happen and what did surprise me is that I've had neither of those. I've had a very solid start, and that's awesome. There have been a good and increasing amount of downloads for this first month. I've had a lot of great questions and feedback. And you hear a lot of people who start podcasts, they don't really get any feedback in the beginning, and they're not really sure if people are liking the episode or if they're helping anyone or even entertaining anyone. That being the case, I want to make this feedback I'm getting part of the show, your feedback. So what I'm doing is I'm going to start featuring some of the questions or feedback that I received during the week on each show. I'll share some of the great stuff I'm getting, and I'll pick 1 or 2 of the questions, and I'm going to answer them right here on the podcast. So if you have a question that I can help you with, you can always email me at feedback@playguitarpodcast.com. You can also use the comments on the show notes page. Today's would be 009. So it's www.playguitarpodcast.com/009. Or you could just go to my website and use the contact form there. But the coolest way to leave a question for the show is using my SpeakPipe voicemail. And so when you go to the website on the main page, right to the right of the screen, you see a button and it says send voicemail. And that allows you to record a short message with your phone or on your computer, something that I can play on the show, and then I can answer the question for you. So you can also get to this on my contact page too. So either way, either on my front page or the contacts page. So I received a great question this week by SpeakPipe, and I didn't get an email address with it or any way to contact this person. I wanted to get his permission so I could use this on the podcast, so I could answer his question. And I hope he'll contact me so I can play it for you. But basically the question was that he's really working hard on scales and chords and knowing the fretboard and vibrato and things like that. And he's been playing tabs and other people's parts, and he's having a hard time using all of this in a way that sounds like himself. And he sounds like he's really having a hard time with it. And I wanted to help him. So I'm going to answer his question here, and I hope he'll get back to me so I can get his permission and use this clip on the show, because it was a great one. So I'm going to give it a try and see if I can help you with this. And this is really the big situation we're in right now. And I deal with this a lot. And it doesn't matter even what age you are. It's all the way across the board. I have a lot of people that I help with this. And you can actually take a listen to episode 1 of the podcast, and I give you my opinions about all the great resources we have for learning guitar now and the actual results people are getting. I've been teaching the guitar for a long time, and I'm seeing a lot more frustration than I've ever seen. I'm also seeing a lot more people memorizing and copying songs too. People they're able to play some really cool stuff, but they don't know what they're doing and why they're doing it. There's so much more to playing the guitar than just numbers on a page. And one of the reasons I included this today, other than helping you with this, is that I know this could help a lot of people. But for your specific situation, it sounds like you're up and running and you're very motivated, which is awesome. But you're in that rut where just piling on new scales and new techniques, learning more of the stuff, more stuff, it's not getting you where you want to be. So let's take what you've learned already and let's start trying to make some music with it. The first thing I recommend is to start being intentional with your practice time. We're going to want to split it into two parts. The first part when you practice is for what you've already been doing, learning new things, working on new scales, chord voicings, progressions, techniques, those things. And this usually doesn't sound great in the beginning, but that's okay. You need that. Even your favorite guitar player, when they're trying to learn new things, they sound bad too. They just don't let anybody hear them doing that. This is the woodshed that everybody talks about. It's important, but it's not everything. I'd like for the second part of how we're going to split your practice time in half. We're going to switch gears. We're going to start playing some music. We need to use what we've learned and start to get creative with it. And we want to play these scales in such a way that they sound great to you. So let's start simple. Find a blues background track in the key of A, and let's limit ourselves to playing in just one scale pattern over this. We're going to play the A minor pentatonic pattern 1 over the whole track. Don't try to get fancy and move it into other patterns. We're just going to keep it right there, simple. And here are the rules. You can play anything you want over this track. You can go up the scale. You can go down the scale. You can skip over notes, repeat notes. You could even play one note 100 times. Anything you want to do. Just when you're finished, hit the tonic note. A lot of people call it the root note. Hit the strong note of the scale. Okay? Just like you wrote a sentence and you put a period or an exclamation point at the end of a sentence. Once you do that, you've just played a phrase. You made a musical statement and it was yours. Whether it sounded good or bad at this point, that's irrelevant. It was your idea. Now move on. Go ahead and play something else, anything you want. And when you're done, hit that tonic note again. There's another phrase. What would happen if you didn't hit the root? Well, that's kind of like just putting a question mark at the end of a sentence. It doesn't feel finished. You could go home and you would still feel like, oh gosh, that song or that phrase, it never finished. You needed maybe another phrase to end it. Okay? So we're trying to make musical phrases with this stuff. And this is the beginning steps I teach all of my students when they're starting to learn how to improvise. And the neat thing is they all sound different when we do this. All of them sound like themselves. They're just making stuff up. It doesn't have to be great. We're trying to do stuff. But when they're done, when they feel like they've said what they need to say, they hit that tonic note. It's a great way to get started with these things and start making these scales sound like something that came from you, and they sound nice. Here's another piece of advice I'd like to give you, and this is something that I got from a Warren Haynes interview. It was a long time ago, and it was when he was playing with the Allman Brothers. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but it said something to the effect of that Warren doesn't really use thousands of licks when he plays. He's just got a core group of licks that he likes to use. And what he does is he likes to slightly change them when he's making up a lead. It could be letting one of the notes last longer than it normally does, or you might choose one of the notes in the lick and repeat it a few times. Or you could play the whole thing backwards, start at the top and work back. Or you could just take one of the notes and change it completely. Whatever the change is, When you change that lick, it becomes a different lick. It's not the same one anymore. You could take one guitar lick that you like to play and you could create hundreds of new ones, all that sound like you, just from this one initial idea. So to put this into practice, find a lick that you like to play. It could be one of yours. It could be from a guitar player that you like, or anything, and put on a looped chord or a background track that matches it's in the key that it's in, and let's start tearing it apart. Let's make one part of it longer, or let's repeat a few notes, whatever. But every time you change it, that musical phrase now becomes yours. And you never know. You just might stumble across the next great guitar lick or riff. You don't know. That's how we're going to do it. So I just want to say thank you for the question. I hope I've helped you out a bit. And I didn't get your email address when you sent the sent the message. So I thought this would be I couldn't respond back to you. So I thought this would be a great way for me to respond back to you on the show. But please contact me so I can follow up on your progress with that. I also want to thank Chris Ward. I had a great conversation with him on Twitter this week. He's been taking advantage of some of the scale patterns up on my blog this week, and he's making the transition from pentatonic scales onto the full major and minor scales. He's doing some looping, and he's really paying attention to where those strong notes of the scales are. And so I wanted to thank Chris, and keep me updated on how you're doing with this stuff. So that's my new segment, listener feedback. I've had a great time. This is actually my favorite thing to do. I do this all week long, helping people and helping you get out of a rut and get on to great things. That's what I love to do. So let me know in the show notes what you think. And if you have any questions or suggestions, just get in touch with me, all right? Okay, let's get on to creating the band. This is Creating the Band. This is where I share with you each week every step it takes to start from scratch, from just an idea in my head all the way through the process to end up with a working band, with an album, videos, website, promotional material, gigs, all that stuff. So if you've been listening to the show, you know that one of the things I thought might be interesting was to bring you along on this process of recording my album. What I'm doing now is I'm gathering 10 core ideas that will give a direction and a basic sound of what I'm putting together. And today I have number 10. This was just a test clip I made. I had got a used Line 6 HD 500X, and I was trying out songs for this, and I put a groove down on the computer. I put some slide guitar over it and a little rhythm guitar, and I never thought about it again. But I've been running through some ideas, and I listened to it, and I kind of liked it. So let's check that out here. It's kind of nice. It admittedly it needs a lot of work. It's not the tightest thing, but I thought it would bring a different vibe to the group of songs that I have without being too drastic of a change. I'm looking forward to tearing this one apart and making something out of it. I haven't heard it in a while. I did this a long time ago, but I don't think that the tone sounded that bad from the Line 6. I know when I was recording it, I was struggling with it, trying to get the sound just right. But those are definitely some usable sounds. So there it is. That's the last idea in the group of songs. And next week I'll play all the ideas back to back. And then after that, I'm going to start working on one of them. I'll create the form of the song, add any parts that I need to it. I haven't picked out which song I'm going to start with yet, but I'm excited to get to it this week. So that's Creating the Band for this week. We're moving along. That's exciting. Let me know what you think about it. I'd really appreciate any feedback that you have. That's it. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show in iTunes or your podcast player or Spotify. I've been getting a lot of listens in Spotify. How about that? Also, I'd appreciate it if you could leave an iTunes review for the show. I'm not sure if you can leave reviews in Spotify yet. I have to check that out. But if you're interested in online lessons, go on over to playguitaracademy.com and join my early adopter list to get news on the opening of my lesson site and also get an early adopter discount. You can also follow me on all my different social media pages. Links to them are at www.playguitarpodcast.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode 10.